So in last video we were done with the introduction and second part, which was fertilization. Today is our next topic, which is about Morula and blastula. So before we just go towards reading and understanding book lines, let's go with what this concept is, what we'll discuss. So Morula and blastula, or it's like blastula, right? So let's start. First thing, when you consider Morula, blastula, you need to consider what these are. So let's see. First thing, we know that fertilization takes place. How? When egg and sperm get fused, they form fertilization, right? So when fertilization is done, this like sperm and these all will go and form fertilized egg, or even that's called something called that's also called a zygote. We mostly prefer this one, zygote. When zygote is done, we go for another part, which is dividing these into this form. That's called as mitosis or cleavage process occur here, or simply we just consider this is blastomere. That's called as blastomere. Then after this one, we have a form structure of kind 4, which is not having any particular name. Then it's like simply blastomere combining and forming other structure. But what if we just make a round structure which will have more than 60 blastomere? That structure called as morula. So I'm sure it will be clear. Morula which have more than 60 cells, right? And this morula is quite, these circle-like structure are quite loosely attached, and even not we consider, but that's genuinely this morula is shaped like a berry, so we just write berry shaped. And we know the fertilization and zygote, these both take place where in fallopian tube. We have discussed last chapter, which was all about reproduction. This chapter is about development and aging, so we'll go with little advancement because we have covered all these things. So I'm sure morula is clear to you. Then comes blastula, but before like considering that, let's read morula, what's written and these all. So let's see. The term morula, which refers to a solid mass of blastomere. So as I mentioned, one blastomere, then two, then when they combine 60, which are quite loosely, they form this structure blastomere, this morula, formed by several cleavage of zygotes. So as I mentioned, cleavage, mitosis of the zygote, which is also fertilized egg. And then the morula in human contains 60 cells, as I mentioned. They grow in the blastocyst formation, which I'll just introduce now. A hollow bubble-like structure which eventually implants in the urinary lining when the number of cells in morula rises. The process, okay, it's like simply morula is written till this. I'm sure it will be clear. Then comes blastocyst formation. So let's see. So blastocyst formation, we are just considering from zygote. There are other cells like blastocyst, zygote has formed. Then we have 2 cells, then we have 4 cells, then 8 cells. Simply, if this is the structure zygote, it will divide into 2 cells, then it will divide into 4 cells, then 8 cells, and after these 8 cells, they'll form one structure, which is the morula, right? So before even, I think I would have added picture of that. Otherwise, I'm just going with quickly. It's like blasto formation. Here we have a structure called as round-like structure, which is morula, which is having a membrane or an outer covering. That membrane covering called as zona pellucida. Zona pellucida. When after this compaction, they combine, they form another structure. This means not another structure. Basically, this morula get ruptured. this means they is getting ruptured. When they become ruptured, so another structure will be formed. Okay, so here comes the structure. So another structure will be formed. That would be like what? That would be simply all the modular structure will come near these edges, near the border, right? And when they comes over the border, that every single part called as cyst. The inside we have fluid, and what you'll see, zona pellucida which is ruptured, so blastocyst hatching will occur. So blastocyst hatching, hatching is simply those who lay egg. So when we consider about birds and these also, we just say they hatch or they're hatching. It means they're laying egg. So when these all things will happen, what you'll see more. So here this entire cavity called as blastoceole. Then what you'll see, all other cells form near one side, that's called as topoplast. So I'm sure it will be clear. Here comes the blasters and these also topoplast, which this means there's embryoblast or they have inner cell mass. So again, let me clear you one thing. This is the diagram. So what you'll see here, tropoplast, which is the outer, these also, this one is called as cyst, but these outer are called as topoplast. So yeah, I got confusion. Otherwise this is not called tropoplast. I'm sure you never mind. Tropoplast is simply the outside these all circles, and the one, if you just take one, as we know atom, then they form cells, then the molecule, these all. So one is called a cyst, but together they form a round like structure, that's called as topoplast. And this inner one which I was mentioning is called as inner mass, that's called as embryoblast or inner cell mass. In book and everywhere we'll see inner cell mass, but you'll also see this embryoblast. So I'm sure it will be clear. Then blastocele, or that cavity is called as blastocele cavity, is mentioned here. I'm sure it will be clear. Then we have one more structure. So what you'll see, so again another structure will be formed. The structure is simply, if this is the structure which will have other these kind of proteins, they have Y-like protein. These proteins are simply, they help in recalling, yes, this is a human being part or something like that. This means they help in recalling. These are protein which help in addition, which means combining a structure. Addition, which is simply like that. Then when it comes about tropoplast, okay, let's go with this color. Tropoplast, you'll see two more parts. First one is Korean, not Korean, but Caucasian or something. I'm not wrong, but the spelling is right. Chorion something, Chohriun, right? Then comes the second part, which is about placenta. This is simply which provide nutrition. Now if you're thinking placenta provide nutrition, so placenta is something which provide protection, right? So I'm sure it will be clear. Topoplast, these all parts, and yes, and this embryonic development, which is another thing. You'll see so many stages in that one, but when we talk about blasto formation, so this is all. So I'm sure it will be clear. Then let's read a book, so to see what's written more. Here you can see picture. Okay, so we can see more. This is blastocyst cavity, also called as blastocele. These outer one called as what? Outer one called as topoplast. The inner cell, these inner one are called as inner cell mass or embryoblast, if written right. That's quite a pillar. Okay, let's consider more. Then the process of generating blastocyst is called as blastulation. Yes, it's a quite important point. Blastocyst, which was a quite small part, which have the outer covering, zona pellucida, these all, right? Then that begin with the cleavage or the mitosis. Cleavage and mitosis are separate thing. Cleavage only occur in animal cells, whereas mitosis occur in animal and plant both. And cleavage, which is simply having cytokinesis process, but when we talk about mitosis, they have cytokinesis plus karyokinesis. We've discussed that in the introductory class. Okay, then comes cell dividing to inner cell mass and the outer cell mass known as topoplast. So the outer is topoplast, inner cell mass. Then the topoplast will rise to the placenta, while the inner cell mass will develop the various tissues, organ. So their function, they're telling about the function of the topoplast, which will rise towards the placenta, and while the inner cell mass, these one, they will help in developing tissues, organs of the embryo, these all. So the inner mass cells are also called as embryoblasts. Is mentioned here but not mentioned in the picture, maybe, or maybe I think this is embryoblast. Well, as division continues, cell begins to move apart and spaces, these all things, um, forming a fluid cavity called as segmentation cavity. Yes, I forgot to tell this. I just told you about blastosphere, but this is a main point as well, that the fluid cavity also called as segmentation cavity. I'm sure it will be clear. Then we have events of gastrulation, which I feel like we need to discuss in next video, but okay, we'll discuss in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.